We are live to the world, madam. Facebook, YouTube, we are going to be live. I'm muting you, madam.
This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to Dr. TSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, hello, and a warm welcome on November 26th. This is the day on 1949 we have adopted our constitution. That is why this is called as Constitution Day, Samvidhan Divas, Rajyanga Dinam. At the same time, it is a National Law Day too. That is the reason why we have got one of the wonderful guests. Before I introduce my guest, let me also say namaste to my guru, Professor Purushottam Reddy Garu, and at the same time, Guru Tulyulu Subbarao Garu. They are going to join because with their grace and blessings, Hyderabad Democracy Forum has completed an year. What a wonderful way. That thought to see that the people in need understand their rights, their privileges, so that they are not taken for a ride. That is the reason why Hyderabad Democracy Forum has been championing the cause of people, whether it is welfare or development, vis-a-vis the fundamental rights or the constitution, invoking constitution. And that is the beauty of this Hyderabad Democracy Forum. And what a wonderful way to celebrate this Constitution Day, having one of the wonderful guests, that is Dr. Binnuri Anuradha Garu. She is an officiating director, SLS, Symbiosis, everyone is writing. I said she is from Symbiosis, officiating director only. I will just introduce and I'll make her to speak. We are thankful to you, madam. Welcome to this special show, live show. I'll just give her brief bio. Dr. Anuradha Binnuri, officiating director, SLS Hyderabad, has more than 2.5 decades of experience as a law teacher and researcher. She pursued her LLB from Madras University in the year 1990, LLM from Pondicherry University in the year 1992, and her PhD from Usmania University, Hyderabad in 2010. She is a hardcore South Indian. Prior to her joining at SLS H, Hyderabad, Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad, SLSH, Binnuri worked at Pendekanti Law College, Hyderabad as the academic in charge and was also managing the institute at the top level in various administrative capacities. Besides teaching the undergraduate and postgraduate students, Dr. Binnuri has guided more than 20 LLM students. Let me reiterate, she has guided more than 20 LLM students. Hats off to her. And is presently guiding doctoral researchers. What a way. Her specialization include labor and industrial laws, while her area of interest is the code of civil procedure, drafting of various documents. That is what we have been reiterating. Hyderabad Democracy Forum has been in the forefront. She has several publications and scholarly articles in journals of national repute to her credit. She is also a much sought after speaker and convener at various conferences and seminars. Her advice is sought by certain judicial bodies and organizations. That is the reason why we say her presence today on Dr. TSPR channels live on Hyderabad Democracy Forum live show is more important. That is why we are again inviting her, saluting her for sparing her valuable time and మా గురుతుల్యులు సుబ్బారావు గారు కూడా he has joined. Sir, would like to have a brief stint about Hyderabad Democracy Forum before we invite her.
Yeah, Hyderabad Democracy Forum, it's almost 1.5 year promoting on principles and practices of democracy and making people to think, realize and practice that democracy is not only exercising your vote, it is beyond the polling date. Democracy is a day-to-day affair, 24 into 7 into 365 days. And democracy calls for the active participation of the citizens. And HDM was launched with the motivation of Professor Purushottam Reddy Garu, and it could conduct not only state, national and international webinars connecting South America, Africa and USA in this regard. And we had several discussions and deliberations on constitution and democracy. And I would like to share my views later after hearing the today's honorable chief guest and the speaker, and also Professor Purushottam.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much, Dr. Shiv Prasad.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would like to ask my Guru Garu, because it is his privilege, it is his idea to call eminent personalities in this, so that this channel becomes a way forward even in legal education. I hope it will be apt for my Guru Garu to invite the guest of today to present her.
Yeah, thank you, Shiv Prasad Reddy garu. Basically, it's a very proud privilege to invite Dr. Anuradha Madam. She is the director of Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad. And you know, Symbiosis is one of the prestigious institutions of law in the country. I had the opportunity of associating with this particular law college for nearly 6 years or so. So, Madam is a great what we call authority on the subject of law, particularly the Indian Constitution. So today, Madam, it's a very important day, as it is India's Constitution Day, it is National Law Day. And this morning I was just going through Samvidan, the Rajya Sabha TV episodes on the making of India's Constitution. But those 10 episodes, I advise every citizen in this country to watch, because we need to understand the great difficulties of making the Constitution for India. India is not, we have to go back more than 70 years to get into the state and think of the great university. On one side, we had, Mr. Jinnah leading, fighting and deliberately, consciously trying to divide the country. On the other side, we had more than 550 princely states, and none of them, in the initial stages, were willing to shed their power. Because thanks to Sardar Patel and his great foresight, that India could be made into a union of states. And now, thanks to Dr. Ambedkar, because he was a great legal luminary, one of the highest period of his times, and a great statesman, he a visionary, he was able to write a constitution. Of course, the entire constituent assembly, they contributed. It's a very big effort. In fact, one of the greatest efforts of 20th century was writing a constitution for the world's largest democracy. And that it was a tough job. And we can really appreciate the difficulties of the making of India's constitution when we follow the 10 episodes known as Samvidhan and prepared by the Rajya Sabha TV. I recommend everyone and Madam, we welcome you as Subbarao has rightly pointed out. All came together to promote and launch Hyderabad democracy because you know very well that in a democracy, eternal vigilance is the price we need to pay in democracy. All democracy is a game where every citizen has to play. It unlike it's not just 22 or 23 members, including the empires. Hardly 25 members play, and thousands of other people would be watching. Whereas democracy is a game where every citizen is a player, and India has been a cradle of direct democracy in the past. We had democracy in Vaishnavi and in the very many gram panchayats of this time. So without going through the details, because you are the chief guest and we request you, we are eager to listen to you, madam. So once again, on behalf of Hyderabad Democracy Forum, I extend a hearty welcome.
I think I have. Madam, I think you have to unmute. Subbarao Gardi mute చేశాను.
Hello, viewers. A very good evening to one and all. Wishing everybody a happy Constitutional Day. Respected Purushottam Reddy sir, Shiv Prasad Garu, and Subbarao Garu, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about the Constitution. Now I would like to go ahead with my presentation. Is my screen visible, sir?
Yeah, it is, madam. Visible. So, when we are defining the constitution, every country has a constitution. The constitution helps and guides in governing a country. History tells us that since the origin of the countries, there have been some kind of rules and regulations to maintain order and harmony. In every country, be it democratic or despotic, it is essential that rules must be accepted which could decide the role and organization of political institutions in order to save the society from anarchy. It is the supreme law of the state. It is the supreme law of the state. It is the foundation and source of the legal authority underlying the existence of the state. It provides the framework for the organization of state government. A constitution is a basic design which deals with the structure and powers of the government. It also includes the rights and duties of the citizens. Sometimes it is founded in an established body of rules, traditions, and practices in accordance with which its government is organized and its powers are exercised. A constitution is a basic design which deals with the structure and powers of the government. It also includes rights and duties of the citizens. The term constitution is derived from the Latin term constitute, which means to establish. The constitution is the basic document of a state. It is the fundamental rule of a state which regulates the distribution of the power with the organs of the government. A constitution means a document having a special legal sanctity which sets out the framework and the principal functions of the organs of the government of a state and declares the principles governing the operation of those organs. Now, the Indian Constitution, a genesis of it, we come to the features of the Act of 1909. This act, also known as
Morley-Minto reforms. Lord Morley was then the Secretary of State for India and Lord Minto was then the Viceroy of India. It has considerably increased the size of the legitimate council, both central and the provinces. The number of members in the Central Legislative Council was raised from 16 to 60. The number of members in the Provincial Legislative Council was not uniform. It introduced a system of communal representation for Muslims by accepting the concept of separate electorate. Under this, the Muslim members were to be elected only by Muslim voters. Thus, the act legitimized communalism and Lord Minto became the father of communal electorate. It also provided for the separate representation of presidency corporations, chamber of commerce, universities and zamindars. Features of the Act of 1909 was also known as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. On August 20th, 1917, the British government declared for the first time that its objective was the gradual introduction of responsible government in India. The Government of India Act 1919 was thus enacted, which came into force in 1921. This act is also known as Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Montagu was the Secretary of State for India and Lord Chelmsford was the Viceroy of India. It introduced for the first time bicameralism and direct elections in the country. It further divided the provincial subjects into two parts, transferred and reserved. The transferred subjects were administered by the governor with the aid of ministers responsible for the Legislative Council. The reserved subjects, on the other hand, were administered by the governor and his executive council without being responsible to the Legislative Council. Thus, the dual scheme of governance was known as diarchy. The features of the Government of India Act 1935. The Act marked a second milestone towards completely responsible government in India. It provided for the establishment of an All India Federation consisting of the province and princely states as units. It abolished hierarchy in the provinces and introduced provincial autonomy in its place. The provinces were allowed to act as autonomous units of administration in their defined spheres. Moreover, the Act introduced responsible governments in provinces. That is, the governor was required to act with the advice of ministers responsible to the provincial legislature. In 1935, the Indian National Congress (INC) for the first time officially demanded
Madam.
a constituent assembly.
Madam,
Yes, sir.
on the screen,
Sir?
we see only defining constitution, but
One second.
Indian
Yes.
Genesis,
Okay,
yeah,
I keep scrolling the screen also.
1909. Now you come down further,
Yes.
madam. Genesis timeline. Then I
Yes,
think
sir.
1919.
Yes.
Then
yes.
you are in 1935
yes, sir.
now.
1935.
Yeah, you go further, madam.
1935 Act. Yes, sir. In 1935,
Yeah.
the Indian National Congress for the first time officially demanded a constituent assembly to frame the Constitution of India. In 1938, Jawaharlal Nehru, on behalf of INC, declared that the Constitution of Free India must be framed without outside interference by a constituent assembly elected on the basis of adult franchise. The demand was finally accepted in principle by the British government in what is known as the August Offer of 1940. In 1942, Sir Stanford Cripps, a member of the cabinet, came to India with a draft proposal of the British government on the framing of the independent constitution to be adopted after World War II. The Cripps proposal was rejected by the Muslim League, which wanted India to be divided into two autonomous states with two separate constituent assemblies. Finally, a cabinet mission was sent to India. While it rejected the idea of two constituent assemblies, it put forth a scheme for the constituent assembly, which was more or less satisfying the Muslim League.
Scroll it further down, madam. Scroll it further. Yeah.
Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly was constituted in November 1946 under the scheme formulated by the Cabinet Mission Plan, a partly elected and partly nominated body. Moreover, the members were to be indirectly elected by the members of the provincial assemblies, who themselves were elected on a limited franchise. The Constituent Assembly had 11 sessions over 2 years and 11 months and 18 days. The constitutional makers had gone through the constitution of about 60 countries, and the draft constitution was considered for 114 days. The total expenditure incurred on making the constitution amounted to rupees 64 lakhs. Enactment was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar introduced the final draft of the constitution in the assembly on November 4th, 1948 for the first reading. The assembly had a general discussion on it for 5 days till November 9th, 1949. The second reading, clause by clause consideration, started on November 15, 1948 and ended on October 17, 1949. During this stage, as many as 7,653 amendments were proposed and 2,473 were actually discussed in the assembly. The third reading of the draft started on November 14, 1949. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar moved a motion, the constitution as settled by the assembly be passed. The constitution was adopted on November 26, 1949, contained a preamble, 395 articles and 8 schedules. The preamble was enacted after the entire constitution was already enacted. Now coming to the salient features.
Yeah, madam, you can go ahead. It is visible on the screen.
Just a minute, sir.
Yeah, please.
The salient features of the Indian Constitution. It was the lengthiest written constitution. Originally in 1949, the constitution contained a preamble, 395 articles divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. Presently, in 2016, it consists of a preamble and about 465 articles divided into 25 parts and 12 schedules. The various amendments carried out since 1951 have been deleted, about 20 articles and part 1, and added about 90 articles. Part 4 consists of 4A, 9A, 9B and 14A, and 4 schedules, 9, 10, 11 and 12. No other constitution in the world has so many articles and schedules. It's drawn from various sources. The structural part of the constitution is to a large extent derived from the Government of India Act of 1935. The philosophical part of the constitution, the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy derive their inspiration from the American and Irish constitutions respectively. The political part of the constitution, the principle of the cabinet government and the relations between the executive and the legislature have been largely drawn from the British government. The other provisions of the constitution have been drawn from the Constitution of Canada, Australia, Germany, USSR, now Russia, France, South Africa, Japan, and so on. Our constitution is a blend of rigidity and flexibility. Constitutions are normally classified either into rigid or flexible. A rigid constitution is one that requires a special procedure for its amendment, as, for example, the American Constitution. A flexible constitution, on the other hand, is one that can be amended in the same manner as the ordinary laws are made, as, for example, the British Constitution. The Constitution of India is neither rigid nor flexible, but a synthesis of both. The federal system with unitary bias. The Constitution of India establishes a federal system of government. It contains all the usual features of a federation, that is, two governments, division of powers, written constitution, supremacy of the constitution, rigidity of constitution, independent judiciary, and bicameralism. However, the Indian constitution also contains a large number of unitary or non-federal features, namely a strong center, a single constitution, a single citizenship, flexibility of the constitution, integrated judiciary, appointment of state governors by the state, all India services, emergency provisions, and so on. Another important feature of the Indian Constitution is the parliamentary form of government. The Constitution of India has opted for the British parliamentary system of government rather than the American presidential system of government. The parliamentary system is based on the principle of cooperation and coordination between the legislative and executive organs, while the presidential system is based on the doctrine of separation of powers between the two organs. Yes. Some more salient features are the synthesis of parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy. The framers of the Indian Constitution have preferred a proper synthesis between the British principle of parliamentary sovereignty and the American principle of judicial supremacy. The Supreme Court, on the other hand, can declare the parliamentary laws as unconstitutional through its powers of judicial review. The Parliament, on the other hand, can amend the major portion of the Constitution through its constituent powers. The next feature is the integrated and independent judiciary. The Supreme Court stands at the top of the integrated judicial system in the country. Below it, there are high courts at the state level. Under a high court, there is a hierarchy of subordinate courts, that is the district court and other lower courts. This single system of courts enforces both the central laws as well as the state laws. Unlike in USA, where the federal laws are enforced by the federal judiciary and the state laws are enforced by the state judiciary. Coming to fundamental rights, the fundamental rights are meant for promoting the idea of political democracy. They operate as limitations on the tyranny of the executive and arbitrary laws of the legislature. They are justifiable in nature, that is, they are enforceable by the court for their violation. The aggrieved person can directly go to the Supreme Court, which can issue the writs of habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and quo warranto for the restoration of his rights. Directive principles of state policy. The directive principles are meant for promoting the idea of social and economic democracy. They seek to establish a welfare state in India. However, unlike the fundamental rights, the directives are non-justiciable in nature. That is, they are enforceable by the courts for their violation. Yet, the Constitution itself declares that these principles are fundamental in governance of the country, and it shall be the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws. Hence, they impose a moral obligation on the state authorities for their application. But the real force sanction behind them is political, that is public opinion. Coming to fundamental duties, the fundamental duties serve as a reminder to the citizens that while enjoying their rights, they also have to be quite conscious of their duties they owe to the country, their society, and to their fellow citizens. However, like the directive principles, the duties are also non justiciable in nature. Secular state. The Constitution of India stands for a secular state. Hence, it does not uphold any particular religion as the official religion of the Indian state. Universal adult franchise. The Indian Constitution adopts universal adult franchise as the basis of election to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies. Every citizen who is not less than 18 years of age has a right to vote without any discrimination of caste, race, religion, sex, literacy, wealth, and so on. The voting age was reduced from 18 years to 21 years in 1989 by the 61st Constitutional Amendment of 1988. Single citizenship. Though the Indian Constitution is federal and envisages a dual polity, center and state, it provides for only one single citizenship, that is the Indian citizenship. In India, all citizens, irrespective of the state in which they are born or reside, enjoy the same political and civil rights of the citizens all over the country, and no discrimination is made between them, excepting in a few cases like tribal areas, Jammu Kashmir, and so on. Emergency provisions. The Indian Constitution contains elaborate emergency provisions to enable the President to meet any extraordinary situations effectively. The rationality behind the incorporation of these provisions is to safeguard the sovereignty, unity, integrity, and security of the country, the democratic political system, and the Constitution. The Constitution envisages three types of emergencies, namely national emergency on the ground of war or external aggression or armed rebellion, Article 352. State emergency, President's rule, on the ground of the failure of constitutional machinery in the state, Article 356, or failure to comply with the directions of the state, Article 365, and financial emergency. Next, we'll discuss a little bit about the Indian Constitution, the Golden Triangle. Article 14, right to equality. Article 19, right to freedom. And Article 21, right to life and liberty, are popularly known as the Golden Triangle of the Indian Constitution. They are of prime importance and breathe vitality into the concept of rule of law. These rights are regarded as the basic principles for the smooth running of the life of a citizen. The Golden Triangle provides full protection to individuals from any encroachment upon their rights. The Supreme Court, in the case of Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India, held that a law depriving a person of personal liberty has not only to stand the test of Article 21, but also of Article 14 and Article 19. The guardians of the Constitution. Constitution of India is the supreme law of the land, and the Supreme Court is its interpreter and guardian. It does not allow the executive or the parliament to violate any provision of the Constitution. It can also review any action of the government which allegedly violates any provisions of the fundamental rights. This power of the Supreme Court is called as the judicial review. If it finds a violation of any of the provisions of the Constitution, it may declare the concerned law as null and void. It is on the basis of this power of judicial review of the court that it is called as the guardian of the Constitution. It is the champion of liberties and a watchdog of democracy. The protector of fundamental rights. The court has concurrent rights with the High Court to issue directions, orders, and writs for enforcement of fundamental rights. These are in the nature of writ of habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and quo warranto. These writs make the Supreme Court a protector and guarantor of fundamental rights. The idea is that in case of violation of a right or a law, the court may issue directions for compliance with the Constitution. The Supreme Court has the right to declare a law passed by the legislature null and void if it encroaches upon our fundamental rights. It has rejected many legislations that have violated fundamental rights. Let's look at a few case laws, a glimpse of them. In the case of Lakshmi Bai Chandragiri versus the state of Karnataka. Consent of the family members is not needed once two adults decide to marry. The court observed that educated younger boys and girls are choosing their life partners, which is a departure from the traditional norms of the society. The consent of the family or the community or the clan is not necessary once the two adult individuals agree to enter a wedlock and their consent has been piously given primacy. The Chief Election Commissioner of India versus M.R. Vijay Bhaskar. In this particular case, the freedom of press relating to the court proceedings were discussed. The court held that the freedom of speech and expression also extends to reporting the proceedings that happen in courts, including oral observations made by judges. Article 19(1)(a) covers the freedom of press, freedom of speech and expression, and covers the freedom of court proceedings too. Now people are more digital oriented and hence look to internet for information. Hence it would do no good to prevent a new medium to report proceeding. Constitutional bodies will do better than to complain about this, the court said. In the next case of Muhammad Salaimullah versus Union of India, right not to be deported is a concomitant right to Article 19 and available only to Indian citizens. The Supreme Court, while hearing a case challenging the decision to deport Rohingya refugee, held that while fundamental rights under Article 14 and 21 are available to all persons, whether citizens or not, the right not to be deported is an ancillary or concomitant right to the right to reside and to settle in any part of the territory of India guaranteed under Article 19(1)(e) and is available only to citizens. In the case of Farzana Batul versus Union of India, the court held that though the right to pursue higher education has not been spelled out as a fundamental right under Part 3 of the Constitution, it bears emphasis that access to professional education is not a government largesse and that the state has an affirmative obligation to facilitate access to education at all levels. The case of Kerala Union of Working Journalists versus Union of India, the court held that while deciding a petition seeking release of Kerala journalist Siddiq Kannappa, the Supreme Court held that the fundamental rights to life is available to under trial prisoners as well. In the case of distribution of essential supplies and services during the pandemic, vaccine policy of the central government, among other things, the court noted that paying for vaccination when it is by the state or the union territories, the government and private hospitals for persons between age group of 18 and 44 is arbitrary and irrational. With this, I'd like to conclude my presentations. Thank you one and all for your patient hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Wonderful presentation. I want you to scroll it
Thank you
right
very
from
much,
first.
sir.
I want you to scroll it from first page to last page.
Once
the-
again, sir.
Yeah, you just scroll it down.
Yes, sir, definitely. Yes, sir, definitely, sir.
Such a lengthy constitution. I said you are Iron Lady of Southern India. You have really brought it to the common man's understanding, because any common Indian citizen now can understand. So beautifully
Thank you very much, sir.
narrated, with all
Sir.
connotations and the glimpses of judicial. Yeah, wonderful, madam. Yes, keep going,
Let's
madam.
scroll slowly, sir, so that people can go through it once again.
Yes. While doing so, with the permission of my two gurus, I would like to first start with you. That last one,
Sir.
you can keep scrolling slowly. The vaccine
Sir.
policy, 18 years to 44 years. You said investments.
sir.
It is arbitrary. In which sense, so that
Yes, sir.
people can understand. That is more popular.
Yes, sir. The point there was that the government, the state government, or when the union territories are administering vaccine, they should not charge the ordinary people. That was the Supreme Court's, when especially if it is the state government or the union territories that is actually administering the vaccine, they're not supposed to charge people and make them pay for the vaccination. It is arbitrary and irrational. That's what they were meant in that particular statement.
Okay.
Even private hospitals also, they were telling that they should not charge for such kind of activity of vaccination.
Hmm. So you mean to say the policy itself, Supreme Court questioned.
Yes, sir.
It is a loosely knit policy, you mean to say.
Yes, sir.
How do you want a common Indian citizen to understand the Constitution?
Sir, as far as the constitution is concerned and the common man is concerned, it would be more like the day-to-day activities that he is doing, how the constitution will help him in his day-to-day activities or any problems that he faces in his day-to-day activities. How is the constitution going to help him? And how is the constitution going to uplift his lives, the standards of living?
So day-to-day applications like Bhagavad Gita, you can say. Or
Yeah,
any.
I have few observations. Srivana,
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Anna.
yeah, at the outset, my compliments to Dr. Anuradha Madam.
Thank you very much, sir.
Even, he has made our understanding of the Constitution very easy, particularly tracing right from 1909, 1935, all the three acts, and then the deliberations of the Constituent Assembly, and then institutionalizing the Constitution. All that has been wonderfully explained. Because basically we observe the Constitution Day or the National Law Day with a basic purpose, and that is to disseminate this information to the masses. So, thank you, madam, for that. But I have just one or two observations on the Constitution. Number one, as you are aware, we have a wonderful Supreme Court. And the way it has been operating, hats off. It is basically a watchdog of the Constitution, as you rightly pointed out. And but sometimes we get certain doubts. For example, myself and my friend Subbarao Garu, we have been working on environmental issues, and many a time we have filed public interest litigations. And particularly in one case, that is Patancheru industrial pollution case, we were able to get about 40 orders from the Supreme Court, thanks to MC Mehta. But our grievance is that these orders are not complied with. And in spite of, the present Chief Secretary, upon whom there are about 290 contempt cases. I just don't understand. When we all, when we give a lecture regarding the Constitution of India, we all definitely are very happy with the work, particularly the Supreme Court and, the wonderful role it plays for the interest litigation right from the days of Justice Krishna Iyer. And then we go through the contributions of Justice Parvati and Justice Venkatacharya and so on. Why doesn't the Supreme Court create a mechanism to ensure the compliance of its own orders? Now, leaving it to the executive, we are already seeing that the executive, the political executives, they have become the protectors of the bureaucratic executive. Particularly in our state, we see the nexus between the Chief Minister and the Chief Secretary. Then what would have fun? 290 cases, contempt cases, and the Chief Secretary, we not arrested on the booking. Okay, this is for example. Going to the central government, many the Supreme Court of India has directed the central government to constitute Environment Protection Authority, EPA. And the central government will not even bother. What is the big limitation on the Supreme Court? Why can't it call the Cabinet Secretary and seek an explanation, and if the explanation is not satisfactory, put it behind the bars? So this gives the impression that in this country, some people are above the law. We have a rule of law, but the bureaucrats think that they are above the law. So this is one. Secondly, on the roads of India, we the people are taught to ensure that the so-called VIPs get a free pass. How can there be VIPs in a country where Article 14 is so supreme? Madam, we seek your opinion on this.
Unmute yourself and speak, madam. Madam, unmute yourself and speak. The disturbance was coming, so it was muted. Just click on that, madam. This will become green. Yeah.
Sir, what you're telling is practical examples, live examples of the decisions of the Supreme Court, High Courts, and what you have actually faced. So very true, sir. I don't say that these are not happening. These are happening, but still, in spite of all that, we are getting some kind of respite or some kind of the relief from the courts. But these practical difficulties are also there, sir. They're very much there, which cannot be denied.
What is the difficulty, madam? The Supreme Court gives a wonderful judgment. We appreciate the Supreme Court. We
Yes, sir.
rejoice. But then the justice doesn't really trickle down. The trickling down is not there. Only we are happy we got a wonderful order, but where is justice? For the people, it hardly matters. We are winning cases, but nothing is happening on the ground.
I just wish that it is followed in its true spirit, sir. The spirit with which it was made, if it was followed by everybody till date, then maybe all these hurdles would have been removed.
But yeah, I think it's time. My friend Subbarao, both of us are connected to symbiosis because recently, how many students, 22 or 23 students,
Yeah.
they did internship with Subbarao, and he has guided them in a brilliant. I'm sure you would look into their feedback forms.
Sure.
Now, only this much, we are not very happy. How can the Supreme Court orders not be complied with? And it is not in a case in isolation. In most of the states in this country, chief secretaries, because they are protected by the political executive.
Gross misuse, sir.
Subhana, now you can.
Thank you so much, Professor Purushottam Reddy Garu and Dr. Prasad, Dr. Anuradha. Practically speaking, I am a layman. By academic and by profession, I am a waterman working on natural resources. I was wondering, you see, thanks that you could unveil on the Constitution. Today I was looking and going through, my habit is I go through several newspapers in the morning. I could see several pictures that celebrating the Constitutional Day with photographs and garlands, but nobody knows what is there in the Constitution. It's like, we always say we have solutions in our Vedic scriptures. I'm sure nobody in this country has read the Vedic scriptures. Okay? So I have some rapid questions, and it troubles me every time. Thanks that you said. I'm also wondering, the constitutional writers, architects, they have scanned through something like 4 colonial countries and several other European countries, never looked into the Indian traditional practices of what kind of management systems the villagers had in those days. Because I am worried about the natural resources. Okay. And my senior, my good friend, Professor Purushottam Reddy, last 36 years, whenever he files in the case in the court, he only refers to the Constitution, but not any effective act of the law. For instance, I tell you, what I feel very bad is the practices that have been in this country for centuries have not been incorporated and integrated in the Constitution. Water resources, I tell you. Water resources, we have a good example in Kadapa district, where we have a stone scripture that how to manage the water resources. I know whom should be punished if they violate. Okay? And the second thing is, in my own father's native village, they had in most of the places, even in Telangana, we had what is called some restrictions, not to allow, pumping of the dead storage water from the lakes. Okay, all these are, they're the fundamental things in this country for centuries. I don't see any place for them in the constitution. Number one. So I feel very bad about it. Okay, and today I'm struggling last 2 months. I do not have, any, manual where the minor irrigation and medium irrigation structures can be encroached, demolished merrily, and when I want to go, when I want to go appeal in the court, I do not find a written guideline in this country. It is only oral. That is another big problem. Constitution only says, do not divert the waters. How long I have to depend on the constitution? That's one thing. Second thing is, the delay in delivering the justice is breeding the mafia gangs on the name of legal advocates. I tell you, NGT tells demolish. This fellow goes and bargains, negotiates with the builder. Okay, Babu, you have 6 months time for implementation. What is the bargain? Even after 6 months, it is not demolished. Okay? Justice delayed always breeds corruption in the country. Why Supreme Court is not realizing this? Is not the Supreme Court, answerable and responsible for creating a conducive environment for breeding up the corrupt people in this country? Those are very painful. See, that is the thing. And I do not have, this is one thing, we have not taken anything from the Indian tradition, the practices that can be incorporated in the constitution. And everybody says democracy is a participatory. I'm a layman as far as the constitution is concerned. I need your, briefing and advice to me. Why one should know about the constitution? Today I am only looking into it. And second thing is, how do I connect to the constitution? You said day-to-day effects. Okay, I'm working in the area of water. I want people's participation. Does the constitution emphasize the participatory approach in decision making? This is my anxieties, nothing else. Does the constitution endorses the participatory approaches in parliamentary decisions? Yeah, that is my question.
Whether Purushottam sir is going to answer or Shiv Prasad sir is going to answer, or something is expected out of me.
No, I'm asking you.
No, I can just, we can only deliberate, but we may not be able to draw conclusions on such huge issues. But one small, maybe it's not a complete solution or suggestion that I can make out, because you are much more in the field and you know what you are actually facing and you know where the lacunas lie. But sir, there are, constitution is definitely there, but along with in the constitution, everything may not be incorporated. So there can be some other enactments, legislative enactments, which may come out to your rescue. The Water Act might come to your rescue to some extent, or any other enactments might come to your rescue for punishments or any other aspects regarding the violation of water laws.
You see, it's not only the water laws. The fundamental thing is the Indian Constitution should have emphasized on the participatory approaches in a parliamentary decision making. If it fails to do that, judiciary has always had an upper hand to nullify that. Yes? You look at the farmers' struggle for 1.5 years. Do you
Yes.
think that it's because of Punjab farmers it could sustain for 1.5 years? Is it possible in the area of Chhattisgarh? Is it possible in the area of Orissa? Forget about Orissa, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka and Andhra, Telangana. Even here, farmers cannot sustain such a long, battle. Then how do we go? Why we should say that this is the largest democracy and Constitution, provides everything to us. These are certain, things what I feel. I strongly believe, that India got the freedom because of the active participation of the, legal fraternity. It was advocates, legal, those days. When we want to make any change in the society, it demands and calls for active participation of the legal fraternity. That was the reason when Professor Purushottam Reddy asked me, I jumped on the opportunity to, guide the symbiosis students. So there are
Thank you very
several.
much for that, sir.
No, it's not. It's my pleasure to work with the student. But
And
what
our
I-
students stand to gain much more, sir. With illuminates like Purushottam Reddy sir and yourself, sir, your good self, sir. Our students will gain much more in the process.
And there are two things which I would like to pose. Some other day we would like to visit you personally and talk to you. One is
Definitely, sir.
How could we make a person to enjoy a dual role as a district magistrate and an executive? It happened. What happened last week? The collector, he resigned in the night, doesn't know the books of the rule, and he filed for MLC. A collector does not know the rules of the book. And how can you give him a dual role as a magistrate and an executive? It's an unfortunate thing in our country. It should be abolished immediately. People like you should, advise the government and the courts. And the second thing is, you mentioned about it, but you did not elaborate it. The three-tier government. Where is the third tier? They have been reduced and transformed into contractors. Where is my panchayat? Where is the panchayat? You see, as a child, the villagers are the backbone, farmers are the backbone. We have successfully broke our backbone, and we are all suffering from the paralysis. When something happens with the backbone and the nervous system, the human body suffers paralysis. The country is suffering from the paralysis.
Yep.
Where is the third system? So these are the issues what I feel, and I wish that Symbiosis Law College will take a lead in discussing this, sensitizing your students on this aspect. I strongly believe, I am totally convinced that it is the only legal fraternity, and young lawyers can make a difference in this country. Forget about it. Such a lengthy thing, we are big copycats. Today I am saying, without any hesitation, that such a big, some 800 and odd, you said articles and all. What is Sweden, Norway, Germany? What Germany has to do with it? So we need to look into this and make things more simple, and we need to understand that, the local legal practices, they may not be legal practices, they were the practices to manage their resources, manage themselves, manage their governance. You rightly said, Constitution is for a good governance. They should have gone through the entire practices of governance at the grassroots and adopted and integrated in the Constitution. I request my senior, Professor Purushottam Reddy, that, Anna, you always say, why not we write a new Constitution? Okay. So let us think, Constitution is for a good governance. There are several good practices at the ground level. Okay? Let us look into that and now let us take the help of Symbiosis College and see how we can manage it. Thank you so much, madam, for me to
Another
take
another
additional
thing,
time.
I think I would like to add, because
You have raised really burning issues, sir.
yeah,
You have raised really burning issues, and your thought of writing a book regarding the traditional practices that have been existing in ancient India from then till date, they have definitely to be brought out to the world and to the public at large, sir. That's a very good thought, sir.
wonderful.
And we are there with for that, sir.
Yeah, because
Thank you so
we
much.
want you to
see that,
take a
they
lead.
are picked and
Yeah.
placed as an amendments in the Indian Constitution.
Wonderful, because that is
It's
our,
only for the good government.
not only good governance, that is our identity. As you rightly said, our identity should go with our practices and our identity. They should all be part of the constitution. That is how we get recognition, instead of, as you rightly said, copycatting, taking it and copying and pasting it here. And you have pointed out the role of Supreme Court. I only hope Supreme Court listens to our live show very clearly. Farmers strike started on last November 26th. Now, it took more than a year for the government to repeal. Supreme Court constituted 3-member panel. Even we have contributed through our channel and individually also. They sought all opinions, but they sat on it. So many farmers died. There was so much of ruckus, so much of violence, unnecessary. And the entire nation was in a rundown condition when pandemic was trying to rule the roost. And that time it was our farmers, the agriculture, which was the mainstay of our natural immunity. Proper food, nutritious food. And during such time, unfortunately, they were made to be on the roads in that really trying times, whether it is too hot or too cold. How can Supreme Court be like that? Now, after going through the constitution which you have presented, Supreme Court has got such unbridled powers. How can it just be so calm and quiet? Appoint a panel and panel does nothing. And they don't even review, or there is no proper this thing, discussion or whatever you say before they arrive on a judgment. The trial was not there. That is really pathetic. The second aspect is even the pandemic case. There are so many cases filed. Till today, Supreme Court doesn't go for trial. Still, we have under emergency use authorization using public funds to fund this vaccine. They have not gone through any test trials or properly. That is why there is no liability and compensation even after more than 1 year, 1.5 years. How can Supreme Court be so calm? And how is that we are being imposed such under trial vaccines? There is no transparency and accountability, madam. Minus 70 degrees centigrade Pfizer. How is it possible? Even the British Medical Journal has brought out the Pfizer trials, how they were manipulated and there is no quality. In spite of all these things, how can Supreme Court be so silent? Now, after going through your constitution, believe me, that is why I said you have given us the best way to understand in a simplistic way. How can Supreme Court be so silent when the rights of people, as you said, the golden triangle is being put to sword? They should come to our rescue. And even the High Courts, B.V. Acharya Garu, 5-time Advocate General of Karnataka, he was very candid and very clear. He says High Courts have got inherent strength to come to the rescue of citizens in case of personal liberty, life and personal liberty. And even Supreme Court should not intervene in that. But how come only except 1 or 2, Guwahati or Assam, now even I think Goan High Court also had come. How is that the other High Courts are just keeping silent? Maharashtra, you get immunization certificate, only then you are allowed. What is this discrimination? How can just High Courts or Supreme Court be calm on this when Article 21 is being violated in letter and spirit? And you have pointed out that this constitution provides such type of unbridled review power for Supreme Court. I only hope Supreme Court is taking cognizance, because even I am a victim. I filed a petition, and which is still December 7, 2018 elections on constitutional violations, right from Honorable President of India to Election Chief Commissioner to Supreme Court Chief Justice. Last year, August 5th, 2020, almost they took it as a pill, but for reasons God knows, they have just put it on hold. My petition, I got so many complaint IDs on constitution violations, evidenced to the point, but after that, election after election is being held, but this petition still lies like that with the Election Commission, because I made even Supreme Court Honorable Chief Justice also a party. Now, this is what is happening. The, as you rightly said, the democracy, how can it function when judiciously Supreme Court doesn't act when there are violations, whether it is fundamental rights or otherwise? Yes or no?
Thank you. One concluding thing, with your permission. My humble suggestion, Dr. Anuradha Garu, is you see, you come from the academic background and we come from practice and all. I'm a trainer basically. So preparing training manuals for a common man, that I do. My suggestion is for different target groups, how I connect to Constitution. Can we make a 10-page manual? It could be a farmer's connectivity. Okay? It could be a man in the water management field. Okay? What are the provisions under the because every time, I keep bothering to the toilet, Anna, there is some problem in the water, which is the Constitution article I think. So, for a common man, if we can come out with a small, brief, simple language, later they may be translated in all the 14 Indian languages. But to begin with, what I say, how I connect to the Constitution. Please think of, you have wonderful students. We can
Yes,
take
sir.
up.
Definitely. This is a wonderful idea which can be done, sir.
Thank you so much.
We'll start working on it, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you so
we can
much.
discuss
Thank
it
you.
live also,
Thank you,
madam.
sir.
Once you make it into a curriculum, we can discuss it live.
Sir.
We can connect even farmers and
Yes.
everyone. This live show series we can go on with Symbiosis and Dr. TSPR channels and Hyderabad under the aegis of Hyderabad Democracy Forum. We can have an open discussion, live discussion. Once you set the curriculum, as you rightly pointed out by Subbarao Garu, farmers, youngsters, women, or water,
Sir.
like that, if you start pooling in, then we can discuss and we can present it to the people. We can enlighten them. That would be the take from this show for today, I feel. That we should educate
Definitely.
every citizen of their rights in their own simplest way, so that they can understand and they can practice, so that they are not taken advantage or no one violates, no one dares to violate. Anything concluding, Anna Purushottam? And tomorrow morning this will be retelecasted on Citizens Dr. TSPR channel at 11 a.m. with a different link. This link will be there eternally like that on Dr. TSPR channels. Do support, subscribe and share. Anna.
Thank you. Madam, once again, thank you on behalf of Democracy Forum. And in the days to come, we would like to interact with Symbiosis India instruments on this very important subject. One basic idea, Mr. Subbarao and all of us, we were discussing whether we citizens can come together and prepare a model constitution. 70 years it has been a long period, and moreover, the difficulty for the common man is, first of all, originally 10 years constitution, then more than 100 amendments. And then we have to read the constitution along with the amendment in the light of Supreme Court judgments. Except for a few lawyers in the country, I think anybody else understands and make anything out of the constitution. So we need to have an attempt to rewrite or going for a new constitution. All the basic features will remain the same. For example, this constitution does not mention sustainable development goals. These are universal goals. The whole world is complete. India is complete. Not included in the constitution. There are many things, madam, after the COVID, probably we can discuss in the college and we can take it forward. Thank you, madam, for giving your precious time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Purushottam Reddy sir. Thank you, Shiv Prasad Reddy sir and Subbarao Garu. Thank you very much. And you're always welcome to Symbiosis to discuss all these issues. And we will definitely make you will definitely find a way out or a solution where we can, as suggested by you all, sir.
Wonderful. Connect
Thank you
live,
very
madam.
much for
Connect
giving me this
live. We will go
opportunity.
live.
Thank you,
We will
sir.
go live to the world. Don't worry. Take care.
Thank
Good
you very much, sir.
Sukha Nidra Shubharatri for all Indians. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Take care and bye. Good night, sir.
Bye. Bye.